Idaho, do you know?
I have no idea. I haven't put on the record, actually.
I know on the
How's that? All right. Can you hear me? Right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Joshua Diaz. And we have our great friend and one of my favorite guests and a good friend, Dr. Gary Brucato, of the Cold Case Foundation. He is a forensic psychologist, author of The New Evil. If you haven't picked up The New Evil, make sure to check that out. It's a fantastic read. It's a long read, and don't read it right before you go to bed. That's for sure. I mean, it's a big book. It's like Moby Dick type length, you know. Moby Dick's a long book. You know, I pretended to read it from 9th grade to senior year. And I wasn't a big fan. I didn't really like it that much. Did you like Moby Dick?
One of my favorite books.
Oh, great. I say I don't like it. It's one of your favorites. That seems how it goes kind of with us, but for some reason there's an ebb and flow to it. And it's, you know, we're
well, call me Ishmael. Yeah, it's a important book because it's really about how a person could be destroyed by obsessional ambition and not being able to let go of a past. What's that?
It was I think I was listening to Chris's show.
Oh, is that the going to Hawaii song that's at the end of the interview room?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, the point is,
you're joining us here pretty shortly.
Yeah, that's awesome. So will probably a lot of people who are exiting the interview room, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, it's a great book. It really is. You know, I always say that. You know, I don't know where I got this from, but I always say that the difference between a good book and a classic book, and Moby Dick is a classic book, is that a good book is a book that you have to read at some point, like at a certain time in your life. Like you have to read it in adolescence. It's the perfect book. You've got to read it in old age. A classic book, you could pick it up at any time in your life, and there will be a lesson in it for that age. Like The Catcher in the Rye. If you read The Catcher in the Rye when you're 15, it's got a very different meaning than it's going to have for you if you read it when you're 60. And Moby Dick is like that. It's classic, you know. But speaking of classics, when is Chris joining?
I don't know. They just finished up, and it looks like he announced that he's heading over this way. And but I
he announced it. Okay, very good. There she blows. There he blows. Right.
So, you've been a busy man.
I am indeed a busy bee. Well, I was thinking about getting back to our deep dives on serial killers. People really seem to love those.
Yeah, it's something that I've really been looking forward to doing as well. I've enjoyed them, and I think that we should as well. People still. I think about the Patreon idea. I think it's a great idea for kind of the hardcores. When we do the deep dives.
You mean that because I think the audience doesn't know what you're talking about. You mean that instead of presenting a case here, we would do like additional lab content, basically, where people pay a nominal fee to watch a deep dive into. Well, I think that would certainly make a lot of sense to do something like the Zodiac case, which I mean, I'm dripping with factoids and thoughts about that case, but it's really a deep dive. I mean, you have to really get into the weeds.
Yeah, and and obviously we'll still cover stuff here and do that kind of stuff. But I'm talking about the really, the deep. But somebody said Israel Keys, and that's something that we talked about as well.
Yeah, I mean that's a very interesting case. I am covering him in a book I'm working on, but that doesn't mean that he can't be discussed generally.
Yeah.
Keys fascinates me on a lot of levels, but one thing that really interested me about him is the way that photography, which figured into the worst of his offenses, actually wound up being his undoing. It's a beautiful example for somebody like me who's interested in, who proposed with Michael Stone this idea of new evil, the way that a technology can be incorporated into your crime. Remember the photograph of the victim from the coffee kiosk, where he makes her look alive when she's dead, and he's doing, I don't even want to get into what he was doing with her corpse, sexually and otherwise. But he is undone by photography also, because he's idiotically gets photographed on the ATM camera. And so it's this fascinating example of how technology can go both ways. So, there's Chris. Okay, happy Father's Day to both of you.
Thank you. Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's
Day. I'm not a father, but you guys are. But Chris, that was a marathon show.
It was a great show. I mean, I got in the zone and I couldn't get off of it. I forgot. Forgive me.
There's a lot to it.
It's a lot to it. An interesting footage you had.
Yeah, I mean, it was real time, right? I mean, right then and there.
Karen did a great job filming you. She was like it looks almost like you had a pro team there or something.
I've married so far up I can't even see straight sometimes.
She's amazing. I don't know how she did it, because it looks like she had it on like a tripod or something and professionally filmed it. She did a really good job.
She never ceases to amaze me.
You think like when you walk down the street with her, people gotta go like, what's the deal there?
Well, yeah, you know what? I got to tell you a true story. So we went to an event one time, and it was a bunch of, alpha males, all
like here,
Navy SEALs. They were Navy SEALs, literally Navy SEALs. So we're at this event, and it was a veterans event that we were both helping volunteer at. Long story short, this one dude walks up, and he goes, "How long you two been married?" And I'm like,
"You trying to see how solid it was,
dude? That's pretty bold, right?"
Yeah.
Move along.
Well, what was great about it is Karen looked at him and go, "Longer than you've been alive."
I love it.
Was he kind of like, how strong are those vows? I mean, do you really mean till death do you part, or is that figurative?
They underestimate her because she was the only female during CENTCON meetings with all these alpha males in the room.
Oh,
she's as the PIO at the PD, and she'd handle it. Next,
Chris, I also somebody told me that you had a hot mic Mac salad situation.
Oh my gosh, that was. Yeah.
And I got to tell you that nothing brings me more joy than calling you Chris Mac Salad McDonough the way that you called me corn dog for the last 3 years.
I can
And-
imagine that happening.
What is the mac salad?
Well, I think he was ordering, or I think he was getting lunch. I didn't see it. This is just what I was told. And that, people were like, oh, Chris had macaroni salad like on the side today or something. And it was on an After Dark show. Somebody was telling me, and I said, well, since he got me with corn dog for the last 3 years, I can't wait to bring up the mac salad situation.
Oh yeah, I mean, you haven't lived till you had a Terry plate with 2 scoop rice and mac salad, right, Maui?
And was it homemade mac? I love mac salad, by the way.
Yeah, it's just Hawaiian mac salad. It's awesome. It's the
Also,
best. We were doing a live, Gary, and I left the mic. I've been having problems with my mic, and I think it's the table as well, because my table is steel and it vibrates and it picks up through my mic, through my headsets here.
weird.
So I thought I turned it off, but I didn't. Like a doofus.
We'll have to link up and we'll run some.
Are you getting a buzz or anything in my?
No, you sound
my
fine.
mic?
No, you sound fine.
Yeah, on this side over here, it's like an echo.
Really? Is
And
your
I think
echo
it's the metal.
ventilation off and all that background noise?
Yeah, it's all off, and I think it's the table.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of people remember that moment, but I've had a couple that Chris sandbagged me on, and one of them was one time I was up editing a video almost all night, and so in the morning, I don't even know if I had been to sleep yet, but we were talking about something. Him and Karen were driving, and I remember it was like 8 a.m. I remember opening my eyes. It was 10 a.m. And then my phone was next to me and I went, oh my God, I fell asleep. And he said that him and Karen listened to me snore for 10 minutes laughing while driving down the road.
You're lucky I didn't record it.
Dude, you should. I'm telling you, I wouldn't have even been mad about it in the least. Cause I mean, that was, yeah, I felt really bad about that. That was like, that's really good. But that was disrespectful, I think, but no, I didn't mean to do that. I was just out, But
You weren't the first, so it's all good.
And Chris is like, well, I guess my conversations are kind of boring. And that wasn't true. I was just exhausted and I fell asleep. And, yeah. So then we get on the air, and the first thing Chris does, he goes, hey, you guys want to hear a funny story? And I knew it was coming. I knew, but I would have done the same thing, So anyway,
Where are you two at with your backgrounds? What are you both at summer camp or something?
Well, it's there's just something about the ordinary background of the house, that after a little while, I started thinking, I'll just blur it out, you know what I mean, for some anonymity. I think, Josh, you guys should keep upping the ante by eating more exotic foods on the air.
Like
rib roast, maybe like a beef stroganoff or something. You got maybe something exotic, crazy food.
Says the New Yorker in Manhattan.
Well, we really eat those things. There's probably a card on the street that sells it. That's not weird in New York.
I don't know how beef stroganoff is more exotic than a corn dog.
It's just ridiculous. You need to eat more ridiculous things. I mean, do you have anything you could bring on the air that would be more?
Probably. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've eaten tuna fish sandwiches from vending machines.
Yeah, that's all right.
Is that ridiculous?
No, not as ridiculous as I'm envisioning.
Really? Oh, I mean, what do you want me to eat?
Like a pangolin or something. Yeah.
You want me to eat a whole cake? Just right
here.
Cake
would be good. Yeah, a multi-layered. That'd be fun.
I'll eat a milk cake. How's that?
Now you're getting weirder. That's good. That sounds fun. Maybe a pie thrown in the face. Keep it interesting. So what? Today is today the actual anniversary of the with summer? Is it actually 6/15?
Today is the day. Yes,
the day of her disappearance.
Correct.
How old would she have been now?
9, I believe.
Oh.
Yeah. And I remember it like it was yesterday when I heard about the case, and you know, this is how, or the case is how I came to know who Chris was.
Oh, is that
It's
how you met? I wondered.
it's through the Summerwells.
I bailed him out.
It was a I was covering it as well, but obviously, you know, Chris had those incredible interviews and the incredible footage,
Yeah.
and
Everybody jumped on that bandwagon after he did.
well, I say this a lot, that Chris gave us a visual,
Yes.
the structure of what Summer and her brothers were living in and going through, and a picture is worth 1,000 words, and that video was worth 1,000,000, because, you know, without being disparaging or anything like that, my mouth was just like, my jaw was on the floor, because I imagine, like, myself, like, having to live there when I was being a child. And, you know, I didn't live in squalor or anything like that when I was a child. I lived in a tumultuous environment, but I feel like those children lived in both. And I do want to say this, and I know that there's this thing going around, and Chris, you may have covered it a little bit, where, you know, Don is now, he's saying that, you know, they've been cleared of all wrongdoing in the CPS cases. And I got to tell you that nothing could be further from the truth. That was an appeal that was shut down because the boys were adopted out. So there was no reason for them to continue with it. That's an appeals paper that was delivered to them saying that it's a moot point to review this now because the children have been adopted out. And I want to tell you that the reason that I feel like that's important is because there is this narrative that has been spun and lies have been told, and this is not true what they're saying. Okay. I don't know what the deal is with I guess they want to be absolved of all their wrongdoings. But it's not the way that they present it. And Tim Mullen, the media manager, seems to be at the helm again. And every time that this sort of, we come up on, you know, another anniversary, the propaganda machine sort of ticks back up. And then what will happen, and you'll see this, is there'll be nothing through, you know, the later summer, fall, winter, and then around June 1st, depending, you know, if nothing's moved, the propaganda machine on the 5-year anniversary will kick back up, and they'll claim some sort of win or whatever it is. The fact of the matter is, nobody in this case has won. Everybody's lost. Don and Candace have lost. The children, I believe, are in a much better place, but they lost their family. And they've lost their sister. And it's a terrible thing. And I don't take any pleasure in this. I got to be honest that it's actually extremely disheartening that a 5-year-old girl disappears and everybody stops looking. And that's what I feel like happened. What about you, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, that's the only control they don't have right now. And that's what they want, is control. Is what I just went through about Hunter. He's 19 now. And he's a keeper of secrets. Well, after tonight, they're going to try to get hold of him. And we already know that. I already know that.
Mm-hmm.
and we'll hear about it for the next couple of days on the, those who would do harm. But the reality is, at some point, that young man is going to talk, and he's going to sing like the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. And he's going to tell stories that everybody's going to go, holy cow.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. And I'm going to do part 2 tomorrow night.
Oh, I can't wait. That's going to be great. I think, so make sure to tune in for that. Have you scheduled it yet?
No, we just finished. Yeah.
Okay. So make sure when it's scheduled, hit that notification bell so you know when Chris goes live, also on this show as well. The Summer Wells case, obviously, and Dr. Gary, you have talked about this a bit with us a few times on the show. And, we went through all these plausible, possible scenarios, and we just all kind of, none of us know what happened. We all have opinions. We're not, adjudicating in a court of law. So we, have to sort of be careful. But the fact of the matter is that whether you like the Hawkins County Sheriff's Department or Sheriff Ronnie Lawson, he has stated, as a matter of fact, that they are suspects in the disappearance of Summer Wells. And I heard Chris say something earlier that I fully agree with, was that when Michael Vaughn went missing and everybody got on Brandy and Tyler, immediately, just, a little ways down the road, they had suspects. There was developments of suspects. TBI in this case has said, if we develop a suspect, if something changes, we will let you know. As far as I know, that has never happened, that they are not cooperating with law enforcement to this day, and that they are named suspects. Everybody in Summer's case is a suspect. That's what we were told by Ronnie Lawson. We were told, the DA said that the players in this case have made it much more difficult to, investigate this case, which tells me that the players are the same people that are the suspects. Now, you can twist it any way you want, and you could say, well, I'm not a suspect. So, and Chris isn't a suspect. Dr. Gary's not a suspect. So when people say everybody's a suspect, that's not true. Everybody that was around Summer is a suspect. And that includes 4 years later. So, Dr. Gary, when we introduced you to this case, what were your initial thoughts?
Well, I always try to remember the dictum, from Sherlock Holmes, my favorite, which says, once you've eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, no matter how improbable, must be the truth. And what I was troubled by is that there really is virtually no way that I can reconcile in my mind that someone outside of the home took that child. There are just serious problems with that supposition. And as a consequence, you're forced to contemplate the possibility of something going on inside the house. Chris, I think you'd agree. There are really serious holes in any attempt to explain an outside role. And the other thing is, I will tell you, is that people who have watched me speak in certain places know that a term that I coined that in the literature is the term elimination murder, which is where you eliminate someone not because of ill will toward them, but because they are a witness, or they know too much, they're in the way, there's money associated with them being eliminated, like an inheritance, they impede a romance, whatever. And in that type of offense, invariably, almost invariably, the cover story is that an outside person took the victim or hurt the victim. And what's interesting is that because the people who do such things are totally unsophisticated most of the time, they don't know how to fake the indications of robbery or sexual assault or any of the things that would explain taking somebody. Now, I cannot and I would not make any kind of accusation, obviously. But what I would say is that I've always been troubled by the inability to come up with an outside kind of figure that seems to explain this, and signs, certainly in the absence of a body, of a sexual outside sexual motivation, like an offender breaking in to take a child or whatever, or any kind of financial gain. So what you're left with is this sort of distressing picture of possibilities. Now, of course, we can't say for sure, but I have always been bothered by that, as I think you have, Chris, the inability to come up with an outside
Most
explanation.
definitely.
Right, and that there doesn't seem to be those classic reasons why a person would randomly break in and take a child. Or at least no signs of it as of now. And I think not having a body is a big problem. If she is deceased, that is to say, not having a body has been a big problem in this case. People sometimes can even get away with things because of the absence of a body. As Stalin used to say, no body, no problem. They used to say in communist Russia, because without a body, you can't really make a clear accusation.
Well, and I think a lot of the people that have to prosecute the case, kind of in smaller towns and counties, it's not like Detroit where they do no body homicides all the time, or no body trials. And I think that, there are things that they could do. They could bring in a special prosecutor, or, something like people that have handled those kinds of cases, just depending on the evidence that they have. But whatever they have, they're obviously not comfortable going forward with it, because for whatever reason, I think a lot of that, Dr. Gary, is because, like you said, that possibly no body, and but. And I don't think that they were ever operating after the first week under the assumption that she was alive.
But theoretically, let's say, just as a thought experiment, let's say you had a situation where a family is missing a child and saying that the child was abducted, is just gone for some years, and you become convinced without a body that the child is deceased. You then charge them with some kind of homicide. Well, what if the child turns up?
Well,
and it's a preposterous situation, and you've put the person through, or the family through a traumatic thing, an accusation, etc. So I think the point is, it's hard to make that charge in the absence of a body.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. I don't know what evidence that they have. See, if what's that?
We don't. That's correct. That's why no clear accusation could be made against them.
But what I'm saying is, though, if they had, I don't know, hair or DNA of some sort or something along those lines that would indicate. I mean, because in I don't know if you know about the Cal City boys case. They never found their bodies, but there was evidence inside the house.
Yes.
That, so like I said, I don't know what evidence they have. Cal City, LA area, they do have people that prosecute those kinds of crimes quite often, no body crimes a lot. And so like I said, I don't know what evidence they have. If you were to ask Don Wells, he would say that they have no evidence, because there's no way that they could ever have any evidence, which is weird to me. If you think that your child was abducted out of a basement with a house full of people, you'd think that there would be some sort of evidence. But people hide bodies all the time, and it's very hard to find bodies.
Well, in elimination murders, which is the very often, unless there's anger involved, some personal grudge involved, very often why members of families are disappeared. The attempts to eliminate the body are often very unsophisticated because these are not professionals, depending upon how psychopathic a person is. There are cases, for example, I'm aware of a case where a soccer player wanted to eliminate his wife, and so after killing her, he fed her to multiple dogs to completely eliminate the body. There are cases like that where people come up with these kind of ingenious ways of getting rid of a body. But for the most part, they're pretty close to the home. They're,
Yes.
buried nearby. There's sometimes, depending upon how callous somebody is, there can be dismemberment and things like that. But usually it's pretty half-baked. And that is why when Chris pops back up, he's like drop dead Fred tonight, just sort of coming up there. Chris, I was wondering.
I'm eating my dinner. I didn't want to be rude.
Oh, that's okay. Beef stroganoff, I hope.
Way to point it out to everybody.
But Chris, my question is to you is, did they ever tear that piece of property apart, dig in the ground, look in the lake, look under the house? I mean, because I was saying that in this kind of offense, if it is something that happened at the home, we don't know for sure, of course. Generally, there are pretty unsophisticated attempts to eliminate the person, their body. I have seen things like the person being, carted off to some place where they discard of, junk, or garbage. I have seen things like that. But for the most part, it's really sloppy, in the backyard, in the forest nearby, in the river, in the lake, whatever, under the house. So my question is, was that property torn apart to look?
Yeah, I mean, it was searched extensively, but
with dogs, obviously.
Dogs, radar, a lot of stuff, but you can miss it. You can miss it. And I agree with you. I'm not, that shed has always been a problem. And there's multiple sheds on the property, but the one down at the bottom of the hill, that's the first shed Don went to. I mean, he gets a phone call allegedly that his daughter's missing. They can't find her. And instead of going to the house where she was allegedly missing from, he goes off property and goes to the shed down at the bottom of the hill, which is basically the man cave. So I've always questioned that idea of, well, what's going on in that shed? Yeah. That the father feels that that's his first response point. He's got to get there. He's got to get to the shed. Well, why? If Summer was abducted off of the property, why is he going to the shed? It made no sense, right? I mean, even today, I mean, we're still scratching. I think all of us are still scratching our heads. When you hear that, you go, yeah, I mean, that doesn't make sense, right? And you just multiply that 100 times with the things that don't make sense. And, then you start doing the math and you start doing the victimology. You start looking at the family history and you start measuring some of the things that were taking place in the family. And then you discover that, oh, by the way, when one of Don's cousin, when she was 12 and Don was 19, you discover all of that stuff that he had SA'd her multiple times, including her girlfriend. And they both reported it to the authorities. I mean, her girlfriend was 12 years old, sleeping over, and Don SA'd both of them. And then we're supposed to believe, oh, well, that didn't happen. Well, why didn't it happen? Because Don said it didn't happen. Well, what about the victims? They said it happened? And so then you push that forward. He was 19 at that time. And Gary, you and I both know the history.
Oh, yeah.
Of how many people are left in between that, right?
That's what's so disturbing, that what generally happens in those kinds of, I mean, but of course we don't know, but Chris, I think, a good example of a case that, if adjudicated, that the accused is guilty, that would follow the blueprint of what I'm talking about, is the Stearns case, the Stefan Stearns case. Because the Stefan Stearns case, if that same thing, the accusation being, he's essaying a child, for some reason there's a need to eliminate her, when she probably, because she hits 13 and it's related in some way, either she gets too wise or is talking to someone, or has hit puberty and is no longer of interest, or is pregnant, or who knows what, and he eliminates her by the accusation he's accused of, and then there's that half-baked attempt to come up with a cover story and get rid of the body, and it follows that traditional path, but because he's not sophisticated and he's sort of dopey in his story, it falls apart rapidly, but in that case there's a body.
Yeah,
if there was no body, you'd be in the same situation. I mean, where is she? Oh, she could have been abducted by a stranger. You know what I'm saying? So, but so you know what I'm saying, Chris? There's almost like a blueprint-like quality to some of these.
Yeah, if we use that as a measurable model, if we look at Stearns and they find thousands and thousands of inappropriate photographs on his phone.
Yeah, I can't. That story makes me want to puke. I mean,
yeah, it does.
Supposedly,
but you know what really makes me puke in that story?
Mm-hmm.
Are the parents and others telling him and coaching him while he's in jail. Well, you didn't do this. 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 Well, meanwhile, he's got 30,000 or whatever the numbers, the crazy numbers are on his phone of, victimizing her.
Yeah.
And there are people still that say, no, that didn't happen. So if we lay that model over what's happened with Summer Wells, okay, how do we know he didn't do it? We don't know. And that's why you get, but guess what? He hasn't found the right person that did it anyway. And he made a phone call to his wife and said, hey, this guy's up on the property, and named Andy. Andy's up on the property touching kids. Well, how would he know that? He was at work. And that's where I think Hunter is so significant, because Hunter heard it and he was in the car.
Hunter knows more than, in my personal opinion, than he's letting on. I mean, he was there all day and he just so happens to get dropped. The thing that I'll never forget is Candace whipping around back downtown to go talk to Hunter after Summer is missing. For some reason, she thought it very important to go back and question Hunter. And I got to tell you that I was somewhat disappointed that Candace was never charged with anything related to that, because I felt as though that maybe she was possibly intimidating Hunter, coaching him to say something, interfering with the investigation in some way. That they were ordered to not speak as well, I believe, after her phone, after both of their phones were taken. And also, he admitted that she had contributed to the delinquency of a minor by providing him alcohol and vapes on that day. She was never brought up on charges of that. There were things that she could have been thrown in jail for, to sort of, a lot of times they'll just arrest you on lesser charges. You know how that is, Chris. Like, we'll keep you for, I don't know, a week or two or whatever we can, and I knew that when Don went to jail, that it was going to be futile. The guy's a hardened criminal. He knows what to not say. But I just, there could have been, I don't understand how 3 kids can be taken from your custody. And basically, or not basically, but adopted out, and then nothing. I know that they offered them the sign your rights over, and we'll just drop this whole situation, which to me screams, guilty of. I would never sign my rights over. I'd fight it as far as I could if I knew I had done nothing. If I knew
from an investigative analysis aspect, right?
Yeah,
This is really not rocket science here
it's not.
on this whole case. This is a situation where a 5-year-old vanishes. Okay, rule number one, 5-year-olds don't vanish. Number one. So that automatically puts it into the category of foul play. Something's going on. Unless you can prove otherwise, i.e., what were the possibilities presented? Or was she walked away? And Gary, you don't have a whole lot of knowledge on this because you came in late. Okay. But the idea of, okay, well, who presents that information? And that's what the CARD team does when they first come in. The child abduction response team. They come in, they do an assessment because there's a golden hour. You have 3 hours. And every law enforcement agency knows this. I've trained it. I've been doing it for years to law enforcement because that was and it still is my avenue of expertise, missing and abducted children.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have 3 hours to get something headed in the right direction. Well, they weren't really sure, and that's why the 911 call was so significant in this. They were trying to narrow almost immediately, what's the 3 hours look like? How many of those 3 hours have we missed? And so when they got there, now the story is in cement, but you have a spokesperson for that story. You don't have the grandmother getting in front of the TV. You don't have the mother getting in front of the conversation. You have the dad getting in front of the conversation. You don't have the boys, okay, getting in front of the conversation. So everything then becomes a controlled projection. And then you stick to that projection. But remember, I made the prediction that he would do what, Josh? Do you remember? He would evolve.
Adapt.
Yeah, and adapt. Exactly.
Yeah.
Classic. And he did. Every time somebody said something, he adapted to that concept.
He's still doing it.
Of course. Well, he just did it today. Or the other day.
Yeah.
He hasn't changed.
No.
But what's interesting is there's a whole other side of the coin now that has said, yeah, that's the reality. That's the truth. I mean, look at the latest one, a burglar. A burglar was going up to the Wells property, and this burglar left with Summer Wells. Gary, how much is that bridge in Brooklyn?
Well, I mean,
You'd have to finance it.
the truth is, we could have it for nothing. It's not worth too much, in a lot of ways, in terms of its driving use. But I do say though that because somebody had said, oh, you're coming at it with no info, whatever. Obviously, I know the basics of the case, and we've discussed it at length here.
Absolutely.
But it's Chris, just on that Stearns point, because in that case it's so clear that there was SA, whatever happened to her, because there's film footage of her being SA'd, and SA comes up in the story here. I wanted to mention an interesting little side remark, to enter into a little side remark of something that somebody asked me about today that absolutely fascinated me. So there's this whole new ethical question coming down the pike and I was asked about it because of my work in New Evil, like the idea of new technologies and how they get used for darkness, And so the question was posed that with the development of AI, the future is going to see a lot of these dolls, these kind of sex dolls that people have relationships with that are very intelligent, seemingly, and so forth. And the argument is being made by some people that this could become a treatment for people who SA children because they can use the doll. And the counter argument is that it will actually desensitize a person to then want to go out and potentially do that to an actual human, or not be able to have a normal relationship with an adult human because they have done this kind of thing with the doll unrelated to child, but even just a seemingly adult doll. And it's a really interesting question, but I was curious what you guys think about this notion of people who have these kind of fantasies getting it out of their system in that way, because I think it's nonsense, but I really think that's coming down the pike because this person was asking me, don't you see a huge problem with this? Because it wouldn't be, there'd be nothing to stop.
I think
stop it. It's so interesting to me. What do you think?
I think it would activate them.
But the person who was talking to me said, well,
I think it would be the opposite.
It's sort of like violent video games.
Yeah,
I think it make you want to go out and be violent. Yeah, I'm just curious what you think about it. I think it's sick.
Because eventually it's like, think about it like from Dahmer's point of view. He had that mannequin, but that wasn't enough. I mean, he was trying to suppress himself with a mannequin and sort of fill a void in a way. It's not going to work. The whole thing is like,
I think it's nuts.
Yeah,
I think it's disgusting and nuts. And incidentally, I think Dahmer thought of his victims as mannequins, inanimate things that you can manipulate. Chris, what do you think? I'm just curious. I mean, don't you see it as fantasy fuel for perverts?
Yeah, that was. It reminds me of just when the internet hit, and whatever. Remember the. Can I say it, Josh?
Yeah, please.
Remember the flasher back in the 80s and the 90s?
The guy in the trench coat with the
trench coat,
Groucho Marx glasses and mustache, yeah, right.
Where'd he go? Where is he?
Right. Turned into a different kind of offender.
Well, yeah, we don't talk about that guy anymore.
Yeah, it's not a get it out of your system kind of situation.
Well, you can't. They can't.
Of course not.
Right. I mean, Gary's an expert in that field, and right. That guy back in whatever it was, 93, 94, and we've talked about this 1,000 times, when he went surprise, okay, and everybody went, oh, look at that guy. Yeah, 911, what's the emergency? Yeah, there's a guy in a trench coat and he's naked. Where did that guy go? Whatever happened to him? Okay. Well, he merged into the internet.
Yeah.
And then once that fuel, he brought it into society and he started beating up prostitutes because he couldn't compete intellectually with the intellectuals also in those chat rooms for that victimology. And so it was this perpetual problem. And so in this situation where they're saying, oh, well, let's just, get dolls or whatever these fruitcakes are thinking.
I think it's horrifying.
Yeah. I mean, talk about priming the pump for mass molestation.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like a jet pilot getting into, an advanced cockpit that's all simulated. And then say, but don't you fly that jet.
Well, your brain doesn't know the difference. Your brain doesn't know the difference at all. That's the problem. That's the whole trouble with the metaverse. It's like the Wild West. There's no laws. I mean, You know, I saw a little study. I don't know if it's published, but I saw a little study somebody was doing for an article or something. I don't know, whatever happened to it. That it only took something like 2 minutes for someone to be assaulted in the metaverse.
Yeah, less than that, probably.
And nothing, and you feel it as if it's really happening. It could even have traumatic effects, I would imagine. And what's
Which
the
is
reaction to be? Unplug from the metaverse. You know, I just think this virtual stuff is no different to your brain. I always tell the story. I went to I want to say Universal Studios in Florida, and I was on one of those like simulation rides where like I think it was supposed to be like Jurassic Park or something. I don't know if that was Universal, but so and we're being chased by a T-Rex, right? Well, after the ride, I was leaving, and somebody like tapped my shoulder to ask me how I thought it was, and I jolted because my brain, you know, thought that I had been chased by a prehistoric animal that clearly wasn't there. But your brain doesn't know the difference, and so you're on heightened, you know, kind of arousal level. I'm just saying the same thing happens with pornography. There's no question in my mind. Your brain doesn't know the difference between you doing it and watching it. So I worry about that fuel. I really worry about that fuel. And the problem is also what happens when people start to become attracted to the idea that they're having a totally easy to navigate relationship with an inanimate thing that is sort of humanoid, and they say, wow, what a perfect partner. They never argue with me. I stick them in the closet when it's over. I get whatever I want. They never say no. They satisfy all my fantasies. Oh, how wonderful. You know, you could just imagine, I mean, what's going to happen? I mean, people wanting to have a meaningful relationship with this inanimate thing. It's like the epitome of narcissistic selfishness. Children are actually multifactorial, but the fact is that it is one of those paraphilic disorders that is a crime. And so fortunately the person is incarcerated, and you know, usually, or they are in some kind of mandated treatment situation. And but the reality is that there is no known cure beyond something that makes it impossible for the person to experience sexual arousal.
Really,
right.
I hate to interrupt. There's the AP is reporting that the shooter in Minnesota has been caught.
Oh, good. Good.
And, so I just wanted to say that because I know that a lot of people are paying attention to that.
Oh, yes.
There's a lot of people on edge. Political violence is never the answer. It's disgusting. Violence in general. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
And how will our society identify with that?
With what?
I'm going to make it real simple. Was he a Republican or a Democrat?
I don't know.
That's how our society will identify the fact that they will ignore the fact that he just killed 2 people, and then they will politicize it.
Yeah,
that goes right into our conversation tonight about those who are circling the wagons even around Summer's death.
Yeah, well, it's propaganda. It's fodder for the fire. It's you know, 2 people were murdered in cold blood, and really to me that's the extent of it. And you know, that's about as far with it as I'm willing to go, because I don't care what his reasons was. I don't care who he votes for. I don't care about any of that. The fact of the matter is that he killed somebody, 2 people, well, allegedly, obviously, but it's just
right. Well, you know, I've talked extensively in a few places, including on Chris' show, about the subtypes of assassins, and there is a type of assassin that is an aggrieved, angry, kind of paranoid, grandiose person who doesn't really care if he dies in the process, but thinks that he is leveling a playing field because of some, you know, whether it's political or so forth, or some personal gripe with a figure, where the person basically sees it as like, you know, this is my mission. And the symbolism, of course, of him dressing as a cop and going to the house is, I'm here to right a wrong. I'm here for justice, right? The cowboy hat and the police outfit is like a dead giveaway of that kind of thought process, right? The the person who sees himself dispensing justice. And it seems to me that we're going to find out that there was some hurt in this person's life related to the party of, or the background of, or whatever, of these people. It's interesting. John Wilkes Booth also was grandiose and narcissistic and paranoid in that way. So it's interesting to think about that. There are other types. I mean, we could find out that, the guy was completely psychotic and hearing voices. We could find out that, there are different theories, but most of the time it has to do with something like that. I'm sure, that we'll find it out. And I'm really interested to know how long he plotted it. If he had studied previous attempts, there are very few. You could count on a few hands the number of completed or attempted assassinations in U.S. history. The best book on the subject, in my opinion, is Clark's book, American Assassins, which was the one that laid out the typology that we use. It's a great book. I love that book. But this is a very, very interesting character from a criminological perspective. So I certainly want to look. And I think, a lot of people, they try to say that Mangione is a assassin, but the person that he killed or is accused of killing was not a political figure, or it wasn't that kind. But it depends on how one defines assassin. The accusation is just a kind of a cold-blooded.
So this guy that in Minnesota, and I get it, and I don't want to get political about it at all, because I just feel like he's a murdering bastard, and that allegedly
we don't know. Yeah,
I mean, I got a problem with people who kill people in cold blood just because they feel a certain way about something. I got a major problem with that. It doesn't sit well with me. It's no different than somebody that gets dumped and can't handle it and then goes and kills their partner. It's to me, it's all the same. It all goes into the same funnel, for lack of a better term, as you used, Dr. Gary, that murder is murder in cold blood. And that's what this is. And that's what Mangione did. That's what
he's accused of doing.
He's accused of doing. That's what my father did, who was convicted of it, of doing it, and so many more around the world. And so it's like Chris said, it will be politicized. Not here. It won't. I refuse to partake in anything like that.
But just for the record, I remember reading that he was an appointee of Tim Walz. So that's a Democratic person who ran for vice president recently, which suggests not a political thing. If you're targeting the Democrats, unless you've had a change in party, it suggests some kind of grudge that we're not aware of yet. And with that kind of person, this would be, incidentally, almost a spree killing. There weren't enough victims, but there almost were. It was an attempted spree killing.
Yeah, because
you think about spree killings, right? Yeah,
correct. 2 were injured.
Right, but you think about spree killings that involve a lot of premeditation, where you put on a costume and this planning and whatever. That's very different than the impulsive spree killer, right? A meticulous person that commits spree killing usually has a grudge. Something has happened, and they have sat back and thought to themselves, one day when you're not expecting it, I'm going to level the playing field. And they plot and scheme and plot and scheme. And if this person is of the type that I suspect, you're going to see that there was a long patch of time where there was this meticulous planning and putting together the ridiculous costume to look like a cop and all that kind of thing. But it's usually, almost always, I did a paper on motivations for spree and mass killing, and usually it's some emotional grudge. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So this will make you feel good. You still have time to sign up. June 28th is the World Naked Bike Ride in LA.
Oh, nice.
You can look it up on Instagram. Okay, and the ride promotes a healthy planet. Yeah, being naked around children riding around Los Angeles is promoting a healthy planet.
You get arrested for that stuff anywhere else.
The second is classic. Bicycle safety. Well, yeah, you're naked. You don't fall. Body acceptance and much more. Register today.
Dr.
This-
Gary, I'm not riding a tandem bike.
If that makes you feel well, everybody.
It
That's
does.
happening June 28th, 2025. The World Naked Bike Ride is in LA. They had one up in Toronto just this month recently. So
It sounds awful.
anyway, and maybe Don will jump in.
I'm sure. Well, I'm sure he's done stuff like that. That wouldn't be the first time he rode a bike naked. I'm guessing.
I mean, you can't make this stuff up. This is our society today.
it's weird. I mean, it's crazy.
This is our culture. And when I was a vice detective in 1984 to 86, all of this stuff was zoned into certain areas because it was obscene to the community. And the more and more that this happens, the more and more women will become objects to more men who are perverse in nature. And it becomes much more dangerous for a young woman to walk on the sidewalks in society.
It's just it's
And the more people make excuses for it, the higher the risk level goes.
Are you sure that in wherever this is being organized, there isn't a location or something that's intentionally shielded from children? I mean, it would be.
It's on the
Rather-
public streets. You can't
But it's
intentionally
very
shield
odd.
children.
But that's what I'm saying. Like,
People are taking kids to the library for special dances. And they're called bigots if they don't do it or if they oppose it. This is a cultural thing that we're going through a transition here. Would you agree? I mean, we're both experts in our fields. I'm worried about the children in this country. I've been fighting these guys for 42 years. And then you see them merging, right? You see them merging into the public arena of saying, "Oh, well, what's wrong with that? What's the big deal?" I don't know.
well, I think the general take-home point is that. What's that? What are you doing, Josh? You putting something up? A video?
Yeah, I was gonna play Don's interview from the news.
I was hoping we would take some calls. To be honest, that's what we told people we were doing a call-in show. But I just think that the take-home point of this first part of the conversation is that there's too much. There's a strange collapse of an understanding of the boundaries that need to surround sex, the effects on children of the outrageous technologies and things that are out there, and on women and on other people who are commonly victimized by offenders, sexual offenders. And it is disturbing, that every technology that is created is abused by someone in some way to do some horrible thing. In that conversation that somebody had with me about, oh, maybe there'll be some utility in these dolls or whatever. I wish I could be optimistic about technology, but it always seems to lead to something bad, one way or another, because it's abused. It's what people do. So I always get a little, I bristle when I hear about some new technology. My first thought is, oh God, how is somebody going to use this to hurt someone or for some kind of perversion? But anyway, so do you guys think we could do some calls or what?
Yeah, but I don't want to play this first.
Yeah.
Because this is the official interview that Don, and by the way, Chris, Candace declined again.
Yeah, true to nature.
You surprised by that?
Not at all.
This weekend,
You guys hear it?
Marks 4 years since a Hawkins County girl was last seen. 5-year-old Summer Wells was reported missing from her home on
Can you guys hear that?
Yep.
Ben Hill Road in the Beach Creek community on June 15th, 2021. On your left, the photo shared by the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation when the Amber Alert was issued. On your right, an age-progressed photo released 2 years ago of what she may look like. News Channel 11's Ansley Daniel spoke with Summer's father, Don Wells, as the 4-year mark of his daughter's disappearance approaches.
Nearly 4 years ago, 5-year-old Summer Wells disappeared from her home here in Hawkins County. It's believed that she walked out of this door and hasn't been seen since. And today, there are still no answers as to where she could be.
It's 4 years too long. My thoughts and feelings haven't changed. I mean, it's been heartbreak, continual heartbreak for the past 4 years.
This very yard is one of the last places Don Wells' daughter Summer was known to be.
We love and miss her very much and wish that she could come home very much, because she was kind of the bossy boss around here, and we just miss our children, man. We had 4 children running around here like crazy.
The then 5-year-old has been at the center of an Amber Alert since June 15th of 2021. Crews searched the Beach Creek community for weeks, with law enforcement receiving numerous tips that never panned out.
We haven't talked to them in a long time. We let Chris and Trudy, our private detectives, deal with TBI in Hawkins County, because I don't know, anyway, it's just better that they do that.
These faded signs all throughout the Beach Creek community are a sign of hope that Summer Wells could still come home nearly 4 years after she disappeared from her home on Ben Hill Road.
It's very bad, and and then when you add the social media pressure, of them saying that we're suspects or whatever.
What do you think, Chris? You think that he was talking about maybe us there?
That what was the question?
I think he was talking about us there.
Oh, probably.
Where that just adds to it, and
He hates you so much. He hates me too, but he hates you way worse. Well, I don't know about way. He did threaten to kill me. I think he threatened to do that to you too, though.
Yeah, I mean, get in line. He's not the last.
kind of living a nightmare.
Summer's mother, Candace, has only spoken to us on camera once. She declined to be a part of this interview minutes before we started recording.
She wanted to, but all them fears started creeping up, of what happened, in the beginning with the social media and everything. Hunting
That's you, dude. Now he's definitely talking about you for sure.
us down everywhere.
Just remember, this is the guy that blamed his 12-year-old cousin that she wanted to be SA'd.
Yeah, and then he also, remember when he blamed us for getting a DUI?
Right. Yeah, it's always somebody else's fault, right? Some other dude.
He was pissed.
Go and trying to basically ruin us everywhere we go, and she's just having nightmares.
After Summer's disappearance, the Wells' 3 oldest boys were put into Department of Children's Services custody, with Dawn and Candace eventually citing their rights over.
We haven't received any updates from them, no contact. And in fact, they deleted the phone number or blocked my phone as soon as we got done with that case and signed our children over.
And still today, one word describes their entire situation.
It's heartbreaking.
In Hawkins County, Ansley Daniel, News Channel 11.
So let me just say this really quick here. The 9 children is over a 20-something year period. Candace had 2 children that were taken by the state. No, excuse me. Candace had 3 children, 1 taken at the hospital because of her drug use, and was taken from her right away. Don lost his 2 children from a previous marriage with Pam. So right there you have 5 children, and then the 3 boys and Summer. The 3 boys were taken by the state. Summer is missing still. So yes, they have no children left. All 9 children between the 2 of them have been taken. Summer is missing, but I don't think under any circumstances, no matter what they say, no matter what Tim Mullins says that if Summer were found today alive, that she would not be reunited with Don Wells and Candace Wells. That I just don't believe that for a second, even though they tried to say that they could be. I couldn't imagine that scenario. But they live in an alternate reality that this crazy person Tim Mullen has. He's a weird little dude, man. I'm telling you right now. But so yes, nine children, and let's not forget, and a lot of the times that she is forgotten, that Rose Bly, Candace's sister, Grandis's daughter, is also still missing. And though we've talked about the odds of that, they're not high odds, right? I mean, it's not something that happens that often. And she has never been found. I mean, where there's smoke, there's fire, Chris.
Yeah. And what's Tim Wells say about it?
Oh, Tim Mullen? Tim
Wells.
Wells. Like that.
Tim Wells.
He did. He probably took Don's last name. He's obsessed.
Yeah,
with it, I tell you. I was on the After Dark. We were watching his old videos where he would like walk around and talk about, how he met Don and Candace. And I've listened to it once before, and it's absolutely insane. He completely crowbarred himself in to, like, he taped his phone number to their front window of their house because they weren't returning calls. Don wouldn't call him back. I don't think Don particularly cares for him, but he's got somebody that will literally do anything and say anything for him, whether it's most of it being nonsensical. And I'm sure we'll hear about it on his propaganda page at some point. He'll say, this is false and this is that. He doesn't tell the truth about stuff. But I find this whole like CPS situation maddening because I know exactly what happened. It's a lie the way that they're putting it out there. It's just not the truth. And I thought of you as soon as I heard. I was like, oh, here we go again. Another propagandist movement. And it happens every year, don't you? I mean, I think it does.
Yeah, I owe it to Summer to pay more attention to her case. That, this little girl did not deserve probably what had taken place. We don't know for sure, but at the same time, 4 years is a long time. And if she had been trafficked, okay, yeah, she could be somewhere. So you always want to have that hope, right? But she did not walk off that property by herself. Or she may have not made it to that property like we were talking about earlier. I mean, Hunter is the key to this investigation at this point, 4 years later. If I was working this from the Cold Case Foundation's perspective, and we had a debriefing on this, the first thing I would say is we need to get hold of this kid who is 19 now. And that's why I did the whole show tonight on her anniversary on Father's Day. Because that young man, as much as he, didn't tell everything on this in the beginning, what he did tell was extremely important. The fact that he put somebody up on the property, the fact that he puts maybe the dad wasn't at work. I mean, those are damaging statements. The fact that the mother came over, Candace came over to his house and interviewed him. What did you tell the cops? The fact that the FBI went back twice and interviewed Hunter, not once, twice. That tells you all that we need to do is focus on Hunter because he's out of the control of Dawn and Candace. And if they realize that, and he cracks one day and says A, B, C, and D, okay, then he will tell the story. And that's all they need. They need a break like that. And that would be the angle I would focus on.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's surprising like how cases can crack all of a sudden. And it only takes one person to say one thing. And, you know, look, you know, we don't have to go through everything tonight about it because there's been so many things said that were suspicious. There was the timeline is completely wrong. I don't, for whatever reason, I have, look, Chris, you've had conversations with Don that people don't even know about that have been off the air. He's called you and you've called him on his crap and he's laughed about it.
Right.
I mean,
he admitted to molesting Jeannie.
Well, he did that. Yes, he absolutely did that as well. But even talking about Summer's case, you know, when he started saying that DCS stole Summer and you sat there and you listened to him tell it for 20 minutes and you said, come on, Don. And then he kind of chuckled it off. And that was the end of that. You know, I mean,
Don's a career criminal. He's not stupid. I mean, everybody plays him off as a country bumpkin, but he's not. He's a very sophisticated pedophile.
yes,
And I'll just say it because it's true.
he's an admitted one.
And he admitted it. Correct. Now, that in of itself is very problematic when you're talking about children going missing. And if you look at the historical aspects of everything, and if you listen to Jeannie, you listen to Mary, you listen to all the other family members, and by the way, I have a whole list. In fact, I pulled my book out earlier because when on my show, I've got a whole list of all of the individuals around him that had reported, all the girls around him that told me that had reported SA.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7. They're all written right here. And now when you think about that, this is in his environment, his circle. His circle. Now you take that out of his circle and you put him into there you go, Mary. Thank you so much. You know. That's Don's cousin.
A stepsister.
Stepsister, excuse me.
Yeah.
Stepsister.
The cousin was
Jeannie.
No. The cousin was the friend of Jeannie's.
Oh, that's right. No. That wasn't the cousin. The cousin's in the book. Sorry. There's so many women I couldn't keep it straight back then.
You're absolutely right. I mean, remember, I remember that, you know, and he denied it. And then, and by the way, one of the lady that was staying with Jeannie the night that happened, when she found out, and I think she said she heard it on the news, or maybe somebody sent her an article about what had happened, that Summer had disappeared. This lady, and she actually came up on, I believe we did speak with her, didn't we? Rhonda, and you know,
Yeah.
I'll give you her name because she said that we could. She had a panic attack and she pulled over on the side of the road and hyperventilated for about 20 minutes. when it sent her into a catatonic state almost.
Yeah, and so we have all of this, and if anybody needs to, if you're defending Don or whatever you feel, that's okay. But it's not, but it's okay. Just go pull the police records. Go do a FOIA. Get the records for yourself and go read them. And then put them up. And watch your whole persona change. Because that's what, see, Don has made a living out of victimizing people.
Yeah.
He's a professional at it. He went to prison 3 separate times in 3 separate prisons. They don't send him there because they're making donuts and they're good at it. They send them there because they're committing crimes and they got caught.
Mm.
And then if you look at all the people that he surrounds himself with, well, what do you expect? They're peas in a pod. I mean, Don even said I kidnapped her, remember?
Yes. He said that to me too.
Exactly.
He said the same thing to me. He said he accused you and Jeannie and Mary of, you didn't even know who they were. They went to the FBI before they ever met you.
Now think about that. If you're 5 years old and a man like that leans over you and says, if you ever say anything about this,
yeah,
that's him. And that's the mask that he pretends to wear out front. And that's why Hunter is so important. If they would let the Cold Case Foundation come in, we'd solve it.
Well, Chris, I mean, really quick. And by the way, there is, and we can take a couple calls if you would like to. I don't know. Yeah, if you'd like to call in. But it's also with the Emily Pike situation that, with the Native American indigenous, like that's, you guys are moving the needle all over the country.
Well, yeah, that's another situation, but I know a lot about that one behind the scenes that I'm not at liberty to discuss.
Absolutely. And I'm just saying that the Cold Case Foundation is doing fantastic work solving crimes and not telling, and it's not like this, holding a huge press conference and things like that. You guys are out there and you solve crimes because it's not just you, it's not just Dr. Gary. There is a team of dedicated people out there that are just top notch. And Dr. Gary, I know that you're very, very proud of the work that you have done and do with the Cold Case Foundation.
Sure.
As well. And, there has been an open invitation for the Sebastian Rogers case and the Summer Wells case that the Cold Case Foundation is on standby if they would like the help. And what a resource. And who, by the way, who accepted the Cold Case Foundation's help and have 4 prime suspects. That would be Fruitland PD in the case of Michael Vaughn. The Cold Case Foundation, you, Chris, as well, did a lot of work. Why do you think that, and this is a great question, why do you think that the Cold Case Foundation has not been invited in?
Pride.
Mm.
Look up the name Andrew Isaac Griffin.
Okay.
I can talk about it now.
Oh yes, the Andrew Isaac Griffin suspect in 2021 double murder.
The Strutzen case,
Is that the one out of Texas?
Ohio.
Ohio. Okay.
Those are the kind of things we do behind the scenes.
Hold on. I'll bring it up real quick.
They arrested him in Hawaii. But it's up to the agency. We only get invited if it's the agency or the family. So either Don and Candace would have to invite us in, or the Hawkins County Sheriff's Department would have to invite us in. We can't get involved unless the agency invites us in.
Correct.
But Chris, in fairness, the case would also have to be considered cold.
Not necessarily. This case wasn't cold. The Strutzen case.
Well, what's the definition of a cold case?
Well, they ran out of directions to go.
So like almost cold. Fear
Yeah.
of being cold.
Yeah, in this case, they executed owners of a business and they lit them on fire. And so we were able to apply and, a bunch of resources into this.
Yeah, and for anybody that thinks that the Cold Case Foundation is not a significant foundation and they want to play it off as though it's some rinky-dink organization, I mean, you're mistaken. I mean, they have all kinds of resources. They have some of the best experts in the world. Retired, some retired, some not. Some very active. And the reason that they get involved in these is because they care. They want to help solve crimes. And, as far as I know, and like you said, Chris, I don't believe, whatever constitutes a cold case, but Michael Vaughn's wasn't really considered a cold case when they called you guys in.
No, it was active.
It was very,
They had run into a dead end after about a year and a half.
Yeah.
And they called us and I spent 4 months with them.
You ended up, exact 4 months, so they're
living in Idaho. And remember when I had my Airstream?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do.
I was basically living at the crime scene.
Those were kind of your hippie days.
Absolutely. And I'm trying to convince Karen that there should be more of those.
Yeah, Dr. Gary, I don't know if you knew him when he had his Airstream, but
it was. I think I was at the tail. He was at the tail end of it when I met Chris.
Sometimes I would call him, and I would just hear him like playing the guitar in the background. I go, "What are you doing?" He's all just watching the sun go down home. You'd hear him stringing the guitar. It was. I know he loved every minute of the Airstream, but But anyway.
If I had seen the things Chris has seen, I'd want to hit the road too.
Yeah, and he does. I mean, he does.
Gary's humble.
Yeah, well, I've seen a thing or two, but the most amazing thing about the foundation, and that I think makes me really very proud of being a member, I mean, beyond the fact that it's kind of like a who's who of people who are experts in their fields, I mean, just remarkable people on that foundation, is that nobody takes any money. The most remarkable thing about it is just the thing people do because they want to help. It's an amazing thing. It's like it really renews your faith in humanity, all of the work, all of the effort, and for nothing, just because people want to help. And I think it's just astounding to me. Don't you think that's amazing, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, we've been honored. I mean, just to help out people, and
that's it.
It's the right thing to do.
Well, that's just it. And I've heard it said by someone in the foundation that we use this kind of Mayo Clinic approach, where you need all these different expertise to look at a case, and someone said there are no lone rangers in the Cold Case Foundation. There's no person who swoops in and solves the thing alone. It's a group. There's no room for egos, you know. And I think that in that way, the foundation becomes like a microcosm, an example of how you get a case solved. You set everybody's ego aside. You sit around in a room. You get a bunch of smart people together, and they think it through. And you know, and you need, which I think a lot of law enforcement doesn't have, you need the time to devote to a single case. I mean, you know, you look at a case in New York, you've got dozens of things going on at the same time. It's really hard to pay attention to a case that's unsolved for years because, you know, there's so much going on. I always thought that figured into how the cases associated with the accused Rex Torreman slipped through the cracks, because there was so much going on in New York. It's like a case that's old just gets kind of forgotten. I'm not saying that necessarily happened, but it's easy for it to happen, for things to go cold, as opposed to a little town somewhere where, you know, they have the time, but they don't have the expertise. You know, and but I've always been very impressed by that. Wouldn't you say, Chris? It's like it really does feel like a Mayo Clinic.
Yeah, it's the same principle, right, Gary? I mean, not everybody has the answer. And whenever you hear somebody say, oh, you know, A, B, C, or D, I mean, I listened to my sweetheart tonight who was watching the video with me with Hunter. And those that know Karen and I, and you guys know us both, she's just right up front saying, well, that's not what I heard. No, that's not what I'm seeing. Now, as an investigator, I could have said, well, I'm sorry, you're wrong. But instead, my training, my thought process, which was one of the things that she told me early on when she fell in love with me, she goes, you're like talking to one of my girlfriends. I didn't know how to take that, quite frankly, because, you know, I'm eating creatine and trying to be a dude. That was a long time ago, but, you know, and she's like, yeah, you're like talking to one of my girlfriends. I'm like, what? Huh? No, wait a minute. Stand by.
Chris, the way you said you were eating creatine is just
you know what I mean? I'm like McPhee eating creatine gummies, you know, tasty gummies. You know, and you know, she was like, no, seriously, you're like talking to one of my girlfriends. I'm like, are my wires crossed over here? You know, I'm checking in my man card. I mean, it's all going to the bank at this point.
Yeah.
You know,
what she says goes.
Well, what she was really saying is, you're a good listener.
I think that's part of it, but I also think that she was probably trying to save whatever she was saying too. She's reeling it back in, you know. I think she thinks that I think it was a hybrid. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, she's mine now. We've been together.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this. Yeah, she wasn't trying to friend zone you. That's for sure. But you are an incredible listener. I've even watched you, you know, talk to suspects and things like that. I've listened to it firsthand, and you are an incredible listener, which is part of the reason why you solved so many homicides, because you were willing to talk to anybody. You're still willing to do that.
Yeah, but it's a huge compliment to tell a man that he has that quality. It means that
I'm just trying to get back at him for the corn dog.
You're secure enough in your manhood to connect with the best aspects of womanhood. That's a beautiful thing. It's like in that movie Miss Doubtfire. Remember that movie Miss Doubtfire, where Robin Williams is pretending to be Miss Doubt, you know, the female maid, so he could stay in the house and see the kids. And then at the end of it, the lesson is that by picking up aspects of a woman, he becomes a better man. I mean, it's really the point of the movie. Well, there's certain truth to that. I mean, I think it takes a kind of a comfort with your masculinity to be cool about talking about feelings and being open and letting yourself be vulnerable. That's a very attractive quality. I don't think that's an insult at all, to tell you the truth. I deal all day long with guys in therapy that can't talk about their feelings to save their lives. And so, Chris, that's a great thing. I think that's a beautiful gift. But it's also very Irish.
Yeah, the
Your,
guy.
your storytelling, your storytelling can talk to anybody kind of thing. To me, is very culturally Irish. I always love that about people of Irish.
Yeah, God's been good to me. He really has. I mean, at church, people would say, "So what do you do?" And I would tell them, "I pick up hookers." When I was in Vice, and it would be like this shock moment of like, "What?" And I say, "No, seriously, I pick up hookers at night. You know, I got to go to work actually in a half hour." And I mean, people there, but mind, you know,
Yeah.
and all the girls would talk to me, all because they all had a story.
Yeah.
And to your point, right? The
Your
Irish in me.
Oh yeah, Chris.
I
One of
want
my favorite memories of you, which I've never told you, is that when I first met you, I told you a joke on the phone. I'm not going to repeat it here because it was a little risque. And then about a year later, you told me the same joke, not realizing that I had told it to you, except that it turned into about a 3-minute storyline with details about every character in the joke and what they were doing, on their way to the scene. In other words, it turned into the most elaborate story, almost like a publishable world that you created. I said to myself, this is a storyteller. What a master storyteller, And but it was the funniest thing because it was like a 1-second joke with like a quick premise and punchline, and it was like you gave the characters names. They were working. I got to tell you later, and you'll remember. But it's hysterical to me because I think it's just what your brain does. It turns it into a story to make it more interesting and engaging. And but I got such a kick out of it. But I think that I have found that to be such an Irish trait.
Well, that's how I got selected as a hostage negotiator.
It's great.
Yeah. And I tell you, one of the most important, or a story that I'm very proud of,
Yeah.
but I don't really talk about it a lot, is so Karen and I were going to dinner one night, headed to San Diego. Josh, do you mind if I drift off here for a moment?
Not at all.
Okay. We're driving down the I-5, and there's this dude on the overpass, and he looks like he's going to jump into the freeway. And as we're getting closer, Karen goes, "Oh, whoa, look at that." And I looked up as we went under the road there, and I said, "Oh man, he's going to jump." And so you can get off in the middle and kind of hook around real fast, right? So by the grace of God, there was a gap in the freeway there, and I hooked around and I went back and I got off the exit and I came back down, and we're in our own car. And I get out of the car and I walk up towards this guy, and he goes, "Who are you?" And I said, "Oh, well, my name is Chris. And hey, what are you doing up there?" He goes, "Well, the cops are after me." And I said, "The cops? What's wrong?" He says, "Oh, they think I did all kinds of stuff, yada yada." He said they thought he was a forger and he was going to kill himself.
Mm.
And I was just thinking on my feet, and I said to him, "Well, you need a lawyer." He goes, "Are you a lawyer?" I said, "Yeah, you're in luck." He goes, "Really? You're a lawyer?" And I said, "Yes, sir. I'm a lawyer." And the guy's, he's ready to jump, right? Meanwhile, Karen's sitting back in the car, okay, watching this, looking at her watch probably. My husband's out talking to a guy on a bridge, and we're late for dinner. And have her tell you this story. So all the cops start showing up because of the 911 calls coming in, and one of them was my old partner named Kevin Kaiser. And I said to the guy, "Hey, hang on for a minute. Let me handle the cops." Okay. And I walk away from him just for a second. And I go to Kevin. I says, "Hey," Kevin's like, "What's up with this guy?" I said, "He's going to jump, dude." And this was literally the conversation almost. And I said, but he thinks I'm a lawyer. He goes, McDonough. I said, I know, but it's working right now. We got to keep him up, see if I can get him on. So here's the plan. He goes, what do you want? I said, get everybody back. When I get up there, I'm going to tell everybody, I'm going to turn around and tell my client that everybody needs to go back, all the cops. Then I'm going to go run and get my car, and I'm going to pull it up. And then I'm going to tell my client to jump in the passenger seat. And as soon as he comes over, you guys cleep him, jump on him. He goes, okay. So I walk up to the guy. And by this time, I'm Mr. McDonough, attorney at law. And I said to the dude, I said, hey, dude, I forget his name. Okay, here's the plan. And I turn around and I said, now, Sergeant Kaiser, you keep all of your men back while I get my car from my client. And he goes, yes, sir. And I said to the guy, okay, here's the plan. You need to come over on this side. I'm going to get you in the car and I'm going to take you to my office and we'll figure this out. He goes, are you really a lawyer? I said, absolutely. Okay. So he said, okay. So I run back down to my car and Karen's in the car and I go, honey, you got to get out of the car. She goes, what? I said, get out of the car, quick. We're losing time here. She goes, oh my gosh. I didn't tell her anything. She gets out of the car. She's standing on the bridge. I pull up, open the door of the passenger side. I push the door open. I said, all right, sir, jump in. The dude comes over the fence and he's running to my car. He gets just about into the passenger seat. The cavalry's on him. Click, hooked him up, and he turns to me. He goes, "You're not a lawyer."
Well,
I said, "You're right, but I just saved your life. Have a good night." So we're driving away, and I told Kevin, I said, "I'll write paper tomorrow when I get in the office. Hold him on 72 hours for a welfare and institutions check, right? Suicidal."
well, you've played a lawyer, you've played an insurance adjuster.
Oh yeah.
You played a John.
Oh yeah, I used to pick up hookers.
Yes, you did.
I was good at it.
Well, and the thing too, and I know that it's kind of a hilarious premise to say, but that you were actually saving their lives.
Yeah.
That was your goal. I mean, I know, from the stories that you've told me, I mean, especially back, down in Southern California in the late 80s, early 90s. I mean, it was just open season.
I have 3 life-saving awards in my career
Yeah.
that were given to me.
And
there are many more stories.
And you listened to them. When most people discard people that, are in a line of work that is unsavory, that doesn't mean that they're bad people. It just means that, their circumstances are terrible. And sometimes people just need encouragement to change. And
I've always felt like an instrument in the Lord's hands. That's really how I've always, try to see things, like, when you're talking to the worst of the worst. And people would say after it was over, they'd go, well, how do you do that? I say, he's not talking to me. He's talking to his Savior. And I really believe that the atonement plays a major role in when people confess to major crimes. That word atonement is at one with men. Atonement. And I really believe that God works in those ways. Now, many other people may or may not believe that, and that's okay. That's the way they are, right? They have their own religious belief. But for me, it was trying to make a connection with the human existence, the human spirit, overlooking the totality of what they had done, because God already saw it. And it would be to their advantage here to say what they did than have to suffer in the eternities for not saying it.
I agree.
And I remember one night I had a kid who had just done this most horrendous situation. He actually put a shotgun in the mouth of a guy and pulled the trigger after he told the guy to open his mouth. And while I was sitting there talking to him, I leaned forward because I felt the impression to do that. And I leaned forward and I said to him, I said, look, what happened happened. I can't change it. You can't change it. But here's what I do know. You're still a human being and you're a good person who did something really bad. And I reached out and I put my hand on his knee and I leaned into him. And I said, can I ask you a quick question? He goes, yes, sir. I said, what did it feel like? And he began to tears just came flooding down his face. And he goes, it was horrible. I said, I can imagine. Now, for me, when I walked out, everybody goes, hey, good job, Mac, and we go on to the next one. For him, that was life-changing. Even though he went to prison for the rest of his life, he went to prison knowing that he had let something go. Maybe not all of it, but he let something go. And I think that's what my role was and continues to be on the earth today. When God's done with me, he's going to punch my ticket and say, come on home. And all the crazy people that hate me and all this other stuff, I don't worry about them because the Lord knows my heart and he knows who I am. He knows me by my first name. I know that to be a true principle. And that's all I worry about. I worry about my wife, my family, and my relationship with my Redeemer. That's it. And now, am I perfect? Heck no. That's why we take the sacrament every Sunday. To say, hey, I screwed up during the week. I need to fix myself this week. But at the same time, I try to treat people with the same way they would treat me. The golden rule. All right, I'm done.
Well, look, I mean, and it was well said, Chris. And we're here now for almost 2 hours, and I know you just got done with your show. I appreciate you coming on, and Dr. Gary as well with you. Before we leave, and you guys can drop down when you're ready. I want to, on this day, play for people that may or may not have heard this before, but 3.5 years ago, I wrote it's essentially a letter, but it was really just my thoughts out loud while I was thinking about the Summer Wells case. I didn't know how special it was to a lot of people. I was sort of ambivalent about putting it out, but I did. And I think that today, I don't play it often. I don't really talk about it often. I don't think about it often. It was a painful kind of thing to sort of express because I have a huge amount of guilt when I talk about these children that go missing and that have been missing or abused, murdered, trafficked. I feel guilty sometimes that I was somehow spared and put into a good situation. And while I had no control over that, it affects me. And so, this was nothing but from the heart. It's just a little 5-minute thing that I would like to play in honor of Summer. And I've met a lot of amazing people through the Summer Wells case, and it's a shame that something like that had to happen. And but I owe her a lot, and I know that her brothers were saved because of her. And
Is she why you met Chris?
She is.
And me also then.
You also, correct.
It's interesting.
I was not a YouTube live streamer. I did podcasts and stuff, sort of getting into true crime-ish stuff, but I wasn't on YouTube, like that, at least. And it was yeah, that's how we met. That's how we all met. And so Dr. Gary, any closing words or anything?
We're not going to comment after you play it.
No, I think I was just going to play it out.
Well, I think it's very beautiful that you acknowledge that there's a kind of identification with, the victims of these kinds of crimes. I mean, I think it's very true that in the in the ocean of life, we all seem to merge with something that reminds us of ourselves, right? Like when the E. Cummings said, "Whatever we lose, like a you or a me, it's always ourselves we find in the sea," and that's true. And I think that's a beautiful thing that you acknowledge that. Look, the truth is, it's a beautiful thing that people maintain hope despite an ever darkening kind of story. With how much time has gone on and all this kind of thing. Hope is a very beautiful thing. It's beautiful that people refuse to give up until there's justice and feel that this child's crying out from wherever she is, that she deserves justice. It's beautiful that you keep her memory alive, that she isn't just garbage, like some of these victims become. I think it's very important to remember that she is way more interesting than whoever it is that did whatever they did to her, and she has to be the center of our attention at all times when she's being discussed. And I commend you for that. I always thought that there was a spirituality to the three of us meeting. I have also had the feeling that all of the people that I've met on this true crime road, on the side of law enforcement and advocates and things like that, really do feel like they've one by one been sort of given to me from above, kind of thing. And as it says in the scripture, the tree is known by its fruit. And I think the fruit that comes out of the work that a lot of the people do in this world, this field that I've connected with, shows that they're good people that come from God. Their work is blessed by God. And so I think whatever happens in this case, we're being the hands of God in trying to help and provide consolation and care. And also, Josh, the story of your life is one in which you faced a terrible darkness, and you understood that the buck kind of had to stop with you, and that you needed to put light forward, or it would just keep going and going and going and destroy more people. And I've always appreciated that about you. But anyway, it's a beautiful thing that we're going to see whatever it is that you're about to show. I have really no idea. And
you never heard this before?
Your vulnerability that you're. Yeah. So Chris, do you know what he's about to show?
I don't recall. And by the way, my computer overheated again, so it just turned me back on. So.
With all that talk of hookers. Well, you see, so the screen tells us it's called Alet, and then it's sort of frozen. So I don't know what Alet means, but what's the rest of it? Is it a letter?
A letter.
A letter?
Yeah.
Yes. But anyway, and Chris, I love your Irish storytelling style. My joke telling style is much briefer. You know, I'm very musical. You know, why the chicken cross the road? You know, why did the rooster cross the road? Because it was stapled to the chicken. You know, like I like that kind of quick.
What do you call an alligator with a vest?
What?
An investigator.
See, now my humor is I would have thought it was funny if it was just very, like, what do you call an alligator with a vest? You know, Jason. That's funny. It's so meaningless. But anyway, all right. So
we can say bye on the other end of it. Whatever you guys want to do, it's fine.
No, let him go. Let him go, Josh.
Yeah, cut me loose. Cut
Chris,
me loose. Seriously,
I want to see it. Go.
Really want to see this. Yeah.
But what were the final moments like? You may not be dead, but no matter what, life as you know it has changed. You have parents, brothers, friends. What do you have now? Strangers? A fate worse than that? Abusive strangers? Are you even still with us? Where are you, Summer? If you're alive, are you safe? If you're alive, are you in danger? If you were dead, how and who did it? You aren't with your family, the family you knew. Sure, living conditions may not be ideal, but you knew it was home. You knew your mom and dad. And we don't get to choose who our parents are. The universe just manifested a lottery of life. There's a lot of people looking for you. There's a lot of people talking about you. Some true, some not. It's hard to tell. But you didn't deserve this. No child deserves this. Whatever this is, you don't deserve it. Sometimes the people we count on to protect us do the most harm. Sometimes it's physically, sometimes it's mentally, sometimes it's both. And sometimes there are strangers that we come into contact with that want to do us harm. Oftentimes our guardians and protectors expose us to situations and people that want to do us harm. And our protectors are flawed humans. But at 5, it's hard for you to tell. Sometimes they put their needs and interests above their children's. They don't always mean to, they just can't help themselves. It's how they were raised, and it might not have been in them to change that. Sometimes I think about the short existence that some people face in this world, wondering, that was life as they knew it. 5 years old and you vanish off the face of the earth. You didn't do that on your own. You had help getting to wherever you are. Wherever that is, I hope it's safe, though I fear it's not. I don't know who did what to you, or where they put you, or how they left you, but somebody did it. And it will be fall soon, and the leaves will start to turn colors, will start to get a little colder out. Pretty soon you'll be able to smell the chimney smoke from the distant houses. And most of us will go on with our lives running the rat race in hopes that one day we'll get a notification or a text saying they found you. I hope that day comes. We want closure. We want to know what happened. And we want to see justice served. If you are alive, crimes in your name have been committed and people should pay. It's a tough world out there, but I'm afraid you may already, at the tender age of 5, learn that life lesson far before you were supposed to. I don't even know you personally, but I know a lot of kids just like you. Innocent, doe-eyed kids who like to get dirty and run around and be loud. That's all any of us ever wanted to do as kids. Annoy our parents, cuddle with them when we are scared in hopes that they will tell us everything would be okay. There's a lot of people here that wish they could tell you everything is going to be okay. My grandpa used to say, we got to do better. Even when we're doing good, he says, we still got to get better. I think what he meant is we got to do better for our kids, for our family, for ourselves. Because if we can't be better for us, how are we going to be better for you kids? Our hope is your disappearance was not in vain, that maybe some light can be found in this. It takes something major to break the cycle of abuse in families. Hopefully, this is what breaks the cycle so the next couple of generations can live a good, healthy life. It's not fair that you had to be the catalyst for this. Nevertheless, you are a hero, whether you know it or not. Kids go missing all the time. Some make it back home, some never do. Who decides? I will never know. Just know you didn't deserve this, whatever this is. And I hope that justice will be served. Whoever did this.
So,
Very moving.
thank you. It's just tragically sad, and this case has left an impression on me forever, and I just, I don't know. I don't know where that came from. I don't know why. It just did. And I sort of looked at it through the scope of, if I was able to just talk, if she could just hear something, maybe that would give her some comfort, maybe some reassurance. I don't know. But I got a lot into my own feelings during that whole thing. And, when I made it at the time, it was just something that I was writing down, but I was saying the words audibly, but writing it down. And when I looked back at it, it was, there were tears all over the paper. And I knew that a lot of the child in me was speaking, and it's not too deep, but that's just how I chose to express that day. Cause I was genuinely having a tough time with it. It's very sad. It's very, very tragic, so
It felt, Josh, almost like a letter that somebody should have written to you when you were a little kid, based on the stories you've told, and I think that's very powerful. I really do, and in many ways, it's a story a letter that almost feels like many people in the audience. Felt like you were talking to their inner child. That's a very powerful thing, but I have to tell you, Josh, this is a good example of where I'm amazed by people who are sustained through things, who aren't people of faith like the three of us are, because it really becomes almost unbelievable, the things that people can get through without believing that there's any justice coming or any kind of, but for those of us who are, I think we have to remember that one of the things that Christ taught us is that there isn't even a sparrow that falls to the earth without God knowing about it. And it's important to understand that in the end, in this extraordinary cosmic way that we all don't understand, in the end, there isn't going to be one tiny dot that isn't fixed, taken care of, understood, revealed in the end, when that kind of truth washes over everything. And I'm grateful that one day when all of us are at the judgment and our hearts are naked, that at least, the three of us can feel that we've at least made an effort to contribute to the good of the world. But there are a lot of people who, let's just say, you wouldn't want to be in their shoes. Don't walk away with the feeling that people really get away with things, because they don't. They may, run across the dash of life quickly. I always think about that, the birth year and a death year on a tombstone, and that line, that dash between. I always think about the double meaning of the word dash, because it's like a run, a quick shoot, right, shot right across. And don't ever think that you can escape truth eventually coming out, because it either happens here or it happens there. Chris, wouldn't you say that in the final analysis, it's all coming out?
Yeah, I mean, proud of you.
That's right.
Good work.
Good work, and try to keep your faith. Because I really believe that whatever happened to Summer, God knows it. And it's important. That's where your faith has to be. That's where your faith has to be more than just a word. That's where it has to sustain you. You can't get so upset about something that you lose sight of the fact that you've got work to do to contribute to the light of the world, not get caught up in the darkness. It swallows you up. It's hard.
Yeah. It definitely is. And like I said, I think that you're probably right. I think that a lot of those words were probably words that I wished that and I'm not even sure that somebody didn't say, something, like, but not in the way that it just kind of kept pouring out of me. I know people would tell me that, it's going to be okay. You're safe. You're this, you're that. And all those things were true. I was safe at the, but I wasn't okay, and it wasn't okay. It was actually really far from it. And I just know how that feels. I just know what it's like to feel discarded and kind of swapped out, and sort of left behind.
But you've been a wonderful father. This is Father's Day, and at least it was here in New York, an hour ago, but still is there. And I think that what is so beautiful about the story is that, there are choices, and you sort of chose to go the path of being a good father, and that's very important to understand, that that's how you beat it. You let it stop with you, and that you spread out into the world kids that were raised by someone who loves them, and they'll love, and those people will. Those little things make every little thing that you do to show someone that you love them makes a huge difference.
They brought me balloons today.
Of course they did.
It was sweet. And it's kind of like this was like the first year that they're mobile now, the cars and everything, and them just showing up like that, where I didn't have to plan anything. My greatest accomplishment in life will be my children, and hopefully my grandchildren. And there's nothing that I'm more proud of in this world. Nothing. I have a great relationship with them, and I worked at it very hard because it wasn't easy. And Chris, you know what it's like to raise children. It's not easy.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, when I was born, they slapped my mother.
Very Rodney Dangerfield.
Then they rolled me over
Yeah.
and told her she had twins.
Oh, I love Rodney. I think Rodney Dangerfield would say things like that, Chris.
Absolutely, and that's why I wanted to bring
I
it
love
up. I just think Josh is an amazing human being, and his children are successful, and the universe is on schedule. All things are known unto those and unto God. All things.
Well, you're not so shabby yourself. I mean, you have very wonderful, successful children, and I got to know Dylan a little bit, and he's one of the coolest, most collected young dudes that there is. And I know that you're proud of all your children as well. And, we say that Dr. Gary doesn't have children, but Dr. Gary was basically almost a father.
You mean a priest? I was almost a father in that sense. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I consider it a good deed to the world that I didn't breed. That was a favor to everyone.
You don't want to be like Mufasa and like hold up a son on Pride Rock or something.
Yes, yes, definitely not. No, I think one of me is quite enough. Even a watered down version.
I disagree with that, by the way. I fully but I think that there should be more Dr. Garys in the world. I do. I truly do.
Gary, I'm picturing like spawning tadpole, like some kind of horrifying mutant creature. It's a terrifying image. To basically keep me out of bright light, don't pour water on me, don't feed me after midnight.
Well, that's the thing is that another Dr. Gary would be great, but maybe one that, throws a baseball every now and then or something.
Oh, the story I always tell about when I was a kid, and I said I don't even own a baseball ball, or what? No, I said I don't even own a basketball ball, which is hilarious because I mean it's
right there.
A basketball. It's a basketball ball, a baseball ball,
a basketball ball. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's the correct way to say it.
It's not.
You have a football ball.
Nope.
Because that's the ball with which you play football.
No, you don't say bowling ball.
No, you'd say a bowling ball because the word ball is not in the name of the game.
Well, baseball.
If the name of the game was bowling ball, you'd say I don't have a bowling ball.
I can't. We've argued about stuff like this before, and this will go all night. I can't do it, but I'm going to tell you that on this one, you're completely wrong. Baseball is, you don't have to say baseball ball or basketball ball. You just don't.
I'm trying to be funny that this is the kind of thing I thought about.
Oh, I know. You think about the Angels don't have belly buttons because they were never born, or
right. When people paint them, why do they give them belly buttons? It drives me crazy. But this is the kind of thing I think about. What can I tell you?
This is
I told you when it drove me crazy that the door of the 7-Eleven said on it, little letters, that no dogs were allowed except seeing eye dogs. So I kept thinking, like, who reads it? The person with the seeing eye dog? These things don't make sense.
He's got a green T-shirt. His hairline is a little back. The other guy's got a white, pink shirt, white hat.
It's salmon.
Yeah. I need two ambulances.
Yeah, I mean,
Josh, get caught up in these deep thoughts,
Oh, I know. I'm just saying. Well, the other day I was thinking about, when you read Braille, who's going to point out where the Braille is? I think about that too.
Oh, I had somebody ask me one time, and I always remember because it's a fascinating question. The question was, they were talking about Cinderella. Remember the story Cinderella? And the story was,
yeah, I remember.
If the shoe fits so perfectly, why did it fall off? Think about it.
How does the toaster know?
What?
How does a toaster know to make it white or brown? How do it know? We used to have, this is like the guy that comes in and the story, they hooked him up to the Xerox machine.
Oh, you mean with the colander?
Oh yeah, they put a spaghetti strainer on his head and then hooked it up to the Xerox machine. And then when they asked him his name, what's your name? And everybody stares at the Xerox, nothing happens. And he tells his name and he goes, okay, he's all right. Hey, you know anything about this case? No, sir. And somebody presses print and it prints out he's lying. Right. And he goes, how do it know? How do it know? Yeah. Milk, United Way's a good Hershey bar.
Oh man, guys, I got to take my dogs for a walk.
Okay, well, we were trying to cheer you up.
Thanks for the invite.
I appreciate you guys.
Hey, if I don't see you tomorrow, so what? So I gotta go.
That's how I feel about it too.
Aloha.
Appreciate
Thank
you.
you guys. Thanks, Lab Rats.
Hi, Dr. Gary.
We'll talk investigator. Don't forget that.
See you guys. Bye-bye. Right. Well, there it was. A great show. Thank you guys so much. Let me see here. I want to just make sure to thank people. Cherry and Max for 29 months. Debbie says, what? Thank you for becoming a YouTube member. And True Cowgirl says, greater wings, gentlemen, back to the beginning, friends. Dr. Brucato, Chris, you're the epitome, the best in true crime. And I agree with that. And Little Miss Sharon, thank you as well. Tanya D, member for 1 month. I appreciate that. And just when I was trying to catch Chris on TIR on replay, Josh goes live. Happy Father's Day, gentlemen. Thank you so much, Eric. And True Cowgirl. Help our brother Josh out, support integrity and values. I appreciate you saying that. I really do. Patty, thank you so much as well. Lulu said, Josh, you made your mark here, just being who you are. And you didn't just raise kids, you raised good humans. Happy Father's Day, bro. Lulu, thank you. I appreciate you. And Pamela as well, thank you for becoming a member and your super sticker. And Kiki 2025 True Crime, thanks for all you do. Tennessee is getting so bad. You think it's pride, or how can we see change? Scary to live here, seeing everything going on and nothing being taken care of, in my opinion. It's very frustrating. I can understand. And thank you guys. Thank you, Chris, and Dr. Gary as well. Fastar, thanks the lab, and wonderful panel guests for keeping Summer's case up front. And I know that I think that Chris answered that question, and it's unfortunate, but I appreciate your $2 donation. Gwen, good to see you as well. All right, guys. Well, there it is. We will catch you next time on the lab, and Dr. Gary and I will be talking up doing a new serial killer show. The ones I enjoy them. I learn a lot. Thank you guys so much for being here. Appreciate it. You guys have a great night.